My submission for the install of the year is 2012 Chevy Cruze. I've outfitted the Cruze with a whole bunch of stereo and even did the display on the outside in a zombie theme. You can see the miniguns mounted on the hood, which we'll go over. These were all fabricated out of parts around the shop. Quick overview, we changed out the fuse block to a handmade one. That's actually the battery hold down and the fuse holder. Took out the old crappy fuses and put in some replaceable fuses. Inside of the car we did a custom dash panel that has inset stainless and it lights up around the radio. The radio is actually painted the same color as all the parts inside. The upper dash, where the old screen used to be, we've converted into a data display area. This hooks up directly to the amplifiers and has the radar detector in it. I put a 4-inch tweeter up in the pillars. Those are suede wrapped. They're trimmed out with laser cut stainless, and this complements the rest of the interior. We have a 6-inch in the door. This comes with a custom grill that we inset into the door that looks completely factory. A lot of work in that to make it look so factory. The back has 3 ARC audio amps and 2 ARC audio black 12s. Lots of lighting, center brace that we'll get into. The processor folds down out of the back deck, and it is also trimmed out stainless steel. The Chevy Cruze has a, as you see, has a really crappy battery fuse block. We took the battery fuse block out and completely redid it with new fuses. This one, if you blow a fuse, you have to replace the whole fuse block basically. We use multiple pieces of laser cut plexi to make the fuse holder, and it's also the battery hold down. It bolts into the factory brackets to hold the new battery down. We replaced it with a Stinger battery. Everything's remarked so you know which fuse is what. Upgraded everything, including the ground cables. We went from 1 4-gauge to 2 aught gauge wires for ground, so everything in the electrical system is upgraded. As you see here, the top of the fuse holder is clear, so you can see if you have any blown fuses without having to take anything apart. All the wires are routed in a consistent manner that lets the bolts go through them where they need to go. There's a recharge port on the back of the car, so if you're at a show or an event, you can plug in a power supply directly to it. All the wires inside of the car are soldered. Any connections are soldered. This eliminates any chances of power wires coming undone. These are actually some small wires, the alarm wires. Everything is twisted if it's small, and if not, it's put inside TechFlex and color-coded. Alarm wires are already color-coded, so they didn't need it. Here you see all the wires that are running underneath the carpet from front to back. Everything's color-coded TechFlex and strapped down with mounting straps so that it doesn't go anywhere. A detailed 100-page installation documentation manual is used to service everything. There's detailed instructions on how to take all the equipment out, what was done to build it, basically this, but in much deeper detail because it's just pictures and instructions. Also, all the owner's manuals are in there too. As for cosmetic integration, so this is what we started out as. The factory radio just had a control panel over top of a basic GM CD player inside. We wanted to replace this with a better head unit, so we picked a Alpine 910, and I picked the Alpine 910 for a couple of different reasons. One, because it can be highlighted on the installation. We took the faceplate off and painted the faceplate the same color as all of the interior panels. We did some little detail work, like we popped out all the buttons and the infrared controller, so that's all still looks factory. So a lot of people say, I've never seen one of those in that color, that's why. Then we took a panel that was already made, and then we had to modify it. We had to extend it out, and then we also sunk in a stainless trim ring around it, laser cut stainless, that follows the cosmetic theme of the whole car, again with the stainless. As you can see here, the fit and finish is perfect. All the spacing is perfect. It doesn't get any better than this. Color combination, trim fit, panel set in, it's all perfect. The top panel, as you saw in the first picture, was the old display screen for the radio that had information for the air conditioner. You no longer need that. Once you replace it, the buttons still light up for air conditioning and heating controls, so it becomes a non-issue and an empty space in the dash. So we use that for a status display radar detector for a hidden radar detector. This clips in and looks completely factory. The doors started out with these ugly grills that had almost no openings at all. So we had to cut that door out, and as you can see, there's very little bow to the door because the trim ring itself came out and set it apart. So I had to take a heat gun and I had to bow that out with a heat gun in my fingers, press it out till it matched the contour of an ARC Audio grill that had a chrome trim ring that matches all the stainless on the inside of the car that we put in. Again, on the pillars, we did a stainless trim ring around the 4-inch, used security screws to hold it in, and the suede follows the rest of the cosmetic theme all the way through. The woofer box in the back, this is 100% plexiglass woofer box. We did a flat black vinyl sticker on the inside of it, and then we did suede wrap on the inside, so it looks like it could be wood, it could be any other material. The flip down processor again has a stainless trim ring that flushes it all in. The shape of the processor mount is such that it doesn't get in the way when you're looking at it from outside. We did trim panels on the inside of the trunk out of, again, suede that follows the rest of the cosmetic theme all the way through the car. But we did logos that light up. So these are laser etched into the suede. Here's a picture of all of the laser cut pieces. We tried to do it in the most efficient manner. But every piece that can be trimmed out is, including the rings there that go around the inside of the woofer and the woofer box that cover up the screws. All of the plastic panels were painted at one time, so they all match. So anything that was body color or black, we painted it a matching ice silver. And again, this goes through the whole car, so it follows a consistent theme. The ice silver contrasts with the laser cut stainless just enough that it looks like it belongs there. As you can see, we get a lot of people that look at the car and don't think anything's ever been done. Once all this is done, we did RGB LEDs all the way through, so depending on what lighting is around, we can change the color again to match the cosmetic appeal. The 3 SE ARC Audio amplifiers were also painted the same color as the outside of the car. We did this versus the gray because the trunk has a different color theme than the inside. Any good system should start out on paper. You should start out with a system diagram, which we have here, and then go from there. We do a lot of high-end stuff, so we do computer modeling of as many things as we can. System response. As you can see here, we did response curves based on the door size and whether we should do any packing material inside of it, or open or ported. We got our best response sealed. This is actually some sound dispersion patterns of how it's going to come through the door. We had to change this a few times and bring the speaker out from the edges more. Underneath the hood, we did the fuse bracket so it could take up as little space as possible, being that there's no room in the engine compartment of this car. All the wiring underneath the carpet is done in the center of the carpet, so there's no bulging on the sides. The car already has so much wiring shoved on the outside edges, we couldn't do it there. T-nuts and bolts were used everywhere. It helped the put speakers in places that they may not have fit because the mounting hardware would have stuck through, so this helps us get away with that. Anything that could be taken out in that space we used because it's such a small car. Where the old screen was, it was not being used anymore, so we made that in the status display area. This all had to be thought out beforehand. Underneath the car, when we did our water cooling, we needed a place to put the pump and the fans and the radiator. So that was utilizing a small crevice in the side of the body that mounts this to a nice metal panel and makes it real well. The amp rack, instead of using multiple layers of MDF or birch, we use a solid 1/4-inch steel plate, and it's timed, laser cut this side down and then powder coated to save space. The amplifiers are stacked on that rack. As you can see here, there's very little clearance, so we get away with getting a lot of equipment stuck in a very, very small space in the spare tire well. No sides on it helps. The motorization is designed to take up very little space. The whole motorization takes up about 3.5 inches. This is for the whole flip down, which you cannot see any of the motor. This is quite a feat. And then the car itself, it has zero loss of space in it. You have such a big stereo and zero loss of space. Even the pillars don't take up any space inside the car. Here's a picture of the trunk, and it has 16 trophies from finals. I couldn't take all of them in the trunk, but 16 trophies is quite a feat, with cleaning supplies and my photo album book. There's very little space taken up even in the trunk. As for fabrication, we'll start out with the miniguns. The miniguns are made out of steel pipe, ABS, and a Home Depot drill. A very, very inexpensive one. It's just looking at a picture and getting an idea for getting a shape that worked for us. These guns do rotate through the remote control of the CompuStar alarm. We took a new hood that was all black and made mounts for it. This can be changed out. We have quick change connectors that plug in. We can change out the hood in about 5 minutes with the miniguns on the front of it. Same with the trunk lid with the wing on it. The underhood fuse block is made out of 17 pieces of laser cut plexiglass. All of the connectors on it are all out of Stinger fuse blocks. This way we could just set them in there. We already had consistent sizes that are made to bolt into plexiglass. It was a quick, easy way to fabricate a fuse block underneath the hood. You'll see here all the holes were laser cut. We use a CAD program to cut everything, and then where the bolts went, we had to snake the wires around them. So it does give it for a little bit of a unique look when you look underneath the hood, and it's very compact. All the laser etching on the top panel, which is replaceable. We do have a travel one, and we have a show one. The show one is got plexiglass on it, and the travel one does not. But it is completely labeled, so even the dealership can get in, which they have had to do, and they can service underneath the hood and know what they're still dealing with. The radio, again, started out as a factory GM front faceplate with a radio behind it. We had to take that faceplate off and remove all the electronics. In doing so, we took basically a metric kit which has horrible gapping, and we shrunk down all the gapping. We extended it up a little bit because we did some other things for the radio. And then we inset a piece of laser cut stainless. So the gapping is as good as you're ever going to get with a double-din radio with a motorized faceplate. Also, the kit came with plastic mounts, and that's not anywhere near suitable for a high-end install. So we completely copied the plastic mounts in in metal. So it's got a metal bracket, probably better than the factory did, that's the same style as the Metra ones. That alone took 2 days to get all the holes right and get all the bends correct. As you can see here, the fit and finish on the paint and on the stainless all fits together well. It just doesn't get very much better than that. On the status display and radar detector, this is a backlit piece, so it's made out of multiple pieces of black plexiglass that are laser cut, and then the LEDs fit into the sections, and that backlights it. It comes on with the radio. The display comes on automatically for the radar detector, so you get a voltage display up there at the same time. The three pieces all have different cutouts. We had to CAD draw this again. Because the radar detector has different heights to the displays. So some of them had to set back more into the pieces than others. And then all three of those pieces are made to snap in just like the factory display screen. So with all those pieces, they need to be able to come apart if you need to service them or if you need to replace them. So we used aluminum two-part bolts that'll, we can just bolt them all together, and it snaps in exactly like the original factory screen. So again, we can put this whole car back together and have it be original again. The radio had this big plug on it, and the plug just it was huge. You couldn't get a radio in and use that plug unless you had 3 hands and took half the dash apart. So we took the original plug and we cut that off, and we got some new connectors, and directly into the Alpine plug made a new connector that's the same but much smaller for the factory radio, without having any of the connectors of a plug-and-play piece that fits in the dash. So now the radio slides right in just exactly like you did if it was factory, which is a smaller radio. The doors are all treated with Dynamat. This isn't a huge fabrication thing, but this door, actually the door panel goes into the door, so laying the Dynamat in there so it was in there effectively was a little bit of work. And then you can see the beginnings of the build out inside the door on the 6.5s. Here's the finished build out. It brings the speaker as close to the grill as possible. It's one of the tricks that we got to work inside of this car to get the least amount of vibrations in the door, and also the best dispersion of mid-bass inside the car. It's also carpeted and finished off inside the door as well as outside of the door. The speakers are soldered together, heat shrunk over that, and then text flexed, and then heat shrunk over all of the ends. You don't get any better protection inside the door as this. We also used quick connects on all the speakers, so that if we needed to try a new speaker, or if we needed to change out a speaker, we could do it almost immediately. We could solder it at the shop. We know that the connectors are right. You just walk in, plug and play. Nothing else has to be done. Again, all the text flex is color coded depending on what where it's going. Speakers are all yellow, so if you get into service anything and you see a yellow text flex, you know that it's a speaker wire. A lot of times when you have a lot of wires, especially for a system that's this big, it's hard to track down in which loom the wires are at. So this is very easy to do this way. Really quick, super easy. It, again, doesn't get any better than the amount of protection and the ease of service as this has. Underneath the carpets, you'll see all of the different colors. The car had to go in for service, and I gave them the book and said, if you see any of these wires, don't touch them. This is where all the wires are at. If you needed to do anything, you'll have this as a blueprint. All the wires go underneath the carpet in grooves in the foam. There's foam underneath the carpets, so the logical paths sometimes don't look like it when there's carpet out of it, but when the carpet's in there, it all follows a theme and a direction that's the best for the carpet and the car itself. And then we have the amp rack. The amp rack is powder coated here, again with the laser cut this side up. That makes for bolting it in and timed, so if you can read it, it's going the right way. We welded in T-nuts to screw into. It was a very, very hard rack to build. Usually I have to drink a 5-hour energy that's this big. This is the actual size of me. That's a regular size 5-hour energy drink, which makes it that much better that I can do all this stuff, being that I'm that short. Next we come up to the brace and the box. The brace actually helps the box from flexing, gives it a little bit better bass response. There's 3 strips of LEDs, RGBs inside of the brace itself. The brace is made of 17 different pieces of laser cut plexi that are black and clear to get the effect. You get a 3D effect on the side of it. This is more than just a cosmetic addition. It helps for frequency response, but it also helps to hide the wires for the woofers. The woofer wires run through this brace and then come out to the woofer, so you see 6 inches of the wire at the very most. So it's more than just a cosmetic doodad. You can see here it all lit up. It lights up in numerous different ways depending on the angle that you're looking at. The 3D effect of the circles on the side kind of go with the rest of the car. With the circles, it kind of has a circle theme, and then the RGBs change colors. The plexiglass box here you'll see is screwed together. This is not double-sided taped. It's threaded and screwed, so it can be completely taken apart. This is the best mounting for any kind of plexiglass. Glue, if it doesn't get in there right, it'll get cracks and leaks. So this had to be precision cut, and everything has to go together perfect. You'll see we laser cut every single piece except for the countersinking of the screws. But you can see all the threads. You can see the perfect circle which lights up after the flat black vinyls on it. Even the holes for the screws for the woofers are laser cut, so they're exact size. Because if you get any kind of torque on that, you can crack the plexiglass. So it's very, very important that everything's done to a high standard there. Again, not just a regular wooden box. We laser cut the plexiglass, the plexiglass, and then laser cut the stainless trim that goes on the inside of the box. Here it's laid out to make sure that we have just enough gap that it glows around the woofers. So this covers up the screw holes, which would be seen otherwise. It's a very, very fine detail point. The woofers, most woofers have a very ugly magnets on them, unless they have a boot. The Arc Audio Blacks do not. So I took some cheesy Kragen side trim and wrapped the magnets, double wrapped them, and then that magnet looks 1,000 times better than the other one. In the final process, you'll see the flat black vinyl, the black suede inside the box, and then the center brace all put in there before the wires are hooked up, just to make sure that everything's straight. Everything had to be perfect, and if it wasn't, it was taken out and redone. The amplifiers, they were painted black to match the car, but another thing that happened is we did water cooling. And the water cooling doesn't just cool the amplifiers, because the amplifiers they won't shut off as it is. But what we want to do is keep them at a constant temperature within 5 degrees at all time when it's running. So the water cooling, we put metal rods down, hollow metal rods, and the water flows through that. There's connectors that are, we use watertight connectors. Um, this is going to hook up to the fans, and that's all constantly controlled to keep the amplifiers at a very exact temperature. You'll see we used fittings for nitrous oxide, so it's very solid. The inside of the amplifier was coated with a component that will help the cooling, the transfer of cooling between the heatsink and the metal rods. The trim panels in the back, we used a laser and we burned off the top layer of suede to get the emblems in the back panel. This has never been done before. We've had tons of people trying to copy it, and everybody else just burns through the suede. It's a very complex way to do this with the laser. You have to use the right laser, and you have to use it the right way. This is just a collage of my logo and Arc Audio's logo, and it's just basically so we could, keep that theme of when we're at a show, showing customers our name, Arc Audio's, promoting the business. You can see here everything lit up. The lighting effect it's got to be very dark for the lighting effect to work, but when it does, it's dramatic. We'll be expanding on this in some future installs this year. The motorization for the processor rack was powder coated. It's all made out of lightweight steel. The way the motorization works, you don't see the motor at all. It's completely hidden, whether it's up or down. Very sturdy. We had to make sure that it could take any kind of abuse from bouncing around. Also, the shape of the cover for the processor and the stainless steel trim is made in such a way that it doesn't take away from the subwoofer box when it's folded up. So it had to be angled on one side, and all the wires needed to run down the other side. So all the wires are completely hidden and encased. Integration with new technology. This is a tough one because what's new to me might not be new to someone else, and we're usually way ahead of the curve. So one of the things that's new for us is the Wi-Fi LED controller. We use a Wi-Fi signal to control the puddle lights, all of the RGB controller for the LEDs inside of the car. We can do all that off the phone. We've tried to incorporate as many things off the phone as possible because that's the newest trend. We had puddle lights that were special made for us with logos that are fun and get people excited at nighttime shows. Here's an example of using the drone for the motorization of the processor rack, nice and smooth, and then completely controlled off the phone through the phone network, data network. As you can see, it folds up the motor very nicely. Here's the drone alarm, CompuStar alarm with drone module hooked up. There wasn't really a place to put the alarm other than new technology because it does so much. So all the wires are spun, soldered, heat shrunk, and wire tied very tightly. Everything in the car, in our opinion, is new technology. You got the radar detector, you got the navigation, you got Bluetooth for the radio, you have processor, which is a new category, digital processing, and I hope this answers that question.
All right, Brian, tell us about your installation education.
Okay, well, when I started, there was no education program. We just had to figure it out. That's one of the reasons why I got so good at what I do. We didn't have kits when I first started almost 30 years ago. We had to make our own. Cars aren't the same as they used to be, and it's getting easier actually than it was in the early days.
All right, great. How about your role in training others in the store?
Whenever a new installer comes into the store, he has to work with me for at least a month. That way I can look over everything that he does, make sure that he does it to our standards.
All right. Other activities that you do in the industry.
I always go to SEMA and CES every single year. I've had a car there for the last 16 years at least SEMA, and then CES probably 5 years out of that. I also do a lot of car shows, competitions. I got the points championship last year, so I was at a different car show, sometimes two a weekend, every weekend of the whole year.
Great. And so, how would you network with other individuals in the industry?
We put on some training events that we did this year. We did training with 30 other stores to train them on sound quality. And I put the training on, me and Fred Lynch at Arc Audio. And so it's not just training for our store, but the industry as a whole, so we can make the whole industry better.
All right, Brian, tell us about awards that you've won this year.
I think I've won a few awards this year. I won 7 national titles this year. I had 3 magazine articles this year. I won over 350 trophies this year. It's one of the biggest accomplishments of the year. Um, I, I know there's a lot of good installers out there, but they don't get judged every single weekend. I've got judged every single weekend the whole year on this car.
All right, take 1200 of why should you be the installer of the year?
Okay, I'm just one installer in a group of 12 installers that all do great work. Some of these guys are just incredible, and I'm proud to be part of the group. But this is my place to say why I think I stand out above the rest. I've done some big things this year, beating out some great guys in the industry, best in the business, for Triple Crown and the IOTY competitions. I've done some very unique things on the installation side, installation techniques like the laser cut suede that glows. Just some things that stand out from the normal. Going to the competitions, getting judged every single weekend on installation. I don't just build a car once, take pictures of it, and that's great. I make it so it's usable. I drive it to shows. My installations last forever.